What's up, guys? It's Eventon here, and honestly, this is probably like my fifth or sixth take of this video. I was transporting my rattlesnake all the way to Langesia, which is where I do most of my mission running. I used it for the Winter Nexus content, and I forgot to put it back, and now with the filaments gone, I had to take it back around the long way. I've tried recording the video, but I just didn't like the sound of it, and I tend to go off on tangents, just like this. So I wanted to keep it more focused on how CCP is honestly trying to challenge us, as well as just kind of like my mindset and coming into like the new year, for real life, but also mostly for Eve Online. And I realize I've been kind of behind the eight ball when it comes to creating content for Eve this year, but I've just been focused on work as well as some other things, and I'm honestly trying to even find another job to replace my current one so that I can have more time to focus on making videos and content and some other side projects that I'm working on as well. So we're going to jump into it because the last couple times I just went off on huge tangents. Sorry if I am kind of all over the place, but I have a few notes written down and I really want to just get some content out here for you guys to let you guys know that I am alive. I'm still playing Eve, but here we go. So Eve Online, I mean, honestly, it's inherently like a open world sandbox PvP. And I think this is where a lot of people get it confused with other MMOs, because honestly, there's no other MMOs like it. Honestly, there is no safe place in Eve other than being in a station. If you're undocked anywhere in high sec, low sec, null, wormhole, doesn't matter where you are, other players can interact with you, whether it's in a positive or a negative way. I guess that's really up to you guys and how you guys want to interact. And I mainly also wanted to reply to a lot of the concerns and issues I've read on forums about Eve in the past and the present, and it seems like everyone especially with the Triglavian invasion stuff. That's probably like the most recent thing, and how recently the Triglavians have been camping the perimeter gate, things like that. At least for me personally, like, I'm an opportunist. So when I saw the Triglavian invasion happening and I realized I lost a few ships and I saw a lot of other people losing ships, I immediately thought, all right, I could either keep complaining about it or I could just find a way to side with the Triglavians, because those people obviously seem to be the most dangerous. They camp the gates the most. I want to side with them. And then I even want to ninja loot some of the wrecks that are happening. So I always try to find a way of, hey, what's something bad, and then how can I turn into a positive or even benefit from it? And I think this is where CCP is kind of hoping a lot of us would do, which is, players are smart. Even the ones in mining chat, believe it or not. And we can adapt very well. So despite the mineral changes and updates and market changes and resistance changes, I mean, a lot's happened this last year. And this is all coming from someone that's played for Eve for less than a year. So I do have a different perspective than some of you guys that might have been playing for 5, 10 plus years. But it seems like at least the PvE content, and this is where the issue lies, is, like I said, it's an open world sandbox. So it's not your typical, there are places where you can go to level 4 missions. You can have PvE in a very self-contained area that you can only interact with, like in a one-way street. But this is part of the reason why I like Eve, is because it's a sandbox. You're interacting with other players. And the thing I like about this is, when the PvE content finds you, it seems like people don't really seem to enjoy that. And that's because they're not, at least for me, they're not looking through the lens that I am, which is, it's a sandbox game. It's not your typical MMO. There's not PvE servers, there's not PvP servers, there aren't PvE zones and things like that. It's very different. Look at these guys ready to gank people. This Confessor, I actually have been locked up by it before. There'll be 2 Gnosis just giving it like locking boosts and stuff. It actually has locked this ship, which is a sub 2-second aligned ship, which is pretty crazy. So if you are going through Rancor and those kind of places, even if you're in a sub 2-second ship, you will get locked up. So make sure you do have your warp stabs, like mine, at 4, or at least 3, because if he's using a faction scram or something like that, he's probably just using a disruptor. But if that happens, it happens, we are getting some heavy lag here. My bad. But yeah, anyway, back on topic. It seems like a lot of people are having an issue that when the PvE content finds them and they start destroying their ship, that's where they have an issue. And this is everyone saying, oh, CCP is ruining my gameplay. This is the way I used to play it. And I don't enjoy it anymore. Which is fine. And you'll probably hear me, I don't know if I mentioned it before, but, CCP is pretty much the dungeon master of Eve Online. I always like to make the funny analogy that when I used to dungeon master, especially for Dungeons and Dragons. If you guys haven't played, you guys should definitely check it out. I'm a huge fan of like medieval tabletop RPGs as well as sci-fi, which is why I love EVE Online. I love watching Star Trek, Battlestar Galactica, Star Wars, things like that. But obviously, I would be the dungeon master, and if someone died or if they got hurt, like, oh, you killed my character, I'm like, I didn't kill your character. That troll did. You guys went into its swamp and pissed it off, and it came after you. Like, those are the rules of the game. Like, it just makes sense. Same thing with this. We've known the Triglavians have been invading for years now. They've been invading specific systems, or they've been roaming for the last 6 months or so. So that the threat is out there. That's the sandbox part of it. And the PvE content will come and find you. And so when people are complaining on the gates and stuff, I get that you have to vent sometimes, but at the same time, honestly, you're not going to garner a lot of sympathy from me. Like if you're complaining to me, like I'll definitely empathize with you, but it's like, well, the solution is like, you can either side with the Triglavians, scout it ahead of time, or figure out something else. And I think that's kind of the main issue. And it sounds like some of those people that one little thing will kind of tip them off to quit the game. It sounds like those people are ready to quit the game anyway, and we're just trying to find a reason to finally leave, right? Another issue I read about online, or people are complaining about how the economy is just ruined. It's not what it was 10 years ago. It's like, I mean, that's even in real life, let alone in video games. Like the economy changes all the time. I played Team Fortress 2, which is a shooter and a predecessor to Team Fortress Classic. So if you guys played a lot of Valve games, Counter-Strike, Half-Life, that kind of stuff, you know what I'm talking about. But TF2 had kind of like a market too. It had crate keys, which is kind of the equivalent of like Plex. And as you play the game, you would get free weapons that you could scrap and get together. And when the game first started, or at least when they first released keys and stuff, you could buy a key from another player for roughly, like, let's say you scrap together like 20 weapons. Nowadays, it takes like 400 weapons just because people have been playing it for so long and the market fluctuates. And there's just a huge influx of people with scrap metal that can buy keys. Like it's only natural that that's going to happen. And same thing with EVE Online. People complaining, oh, cruisers used to be 5 million, or insurance used to pay out this much when I would lose my ship, this and that. The game changes. And I think that's why I think more veteran players quit out of boredom and like lack of direction or content, rather than things changing. Oh, they changed this one thing, I'm quitting forever. I think I would argue, and this is veteran players, not rookies. I mean, they haven't been playing long enough to necessarily understand. I mean, they have their own issues for quitting. And this is all the more reason why, I mean, honestly, if your EVE Online fun hinges strictly on one play style, maybe two play styles, I mean, you're really putting yourself at risk to be disappointed, because EVE, I mean, in order to keep the game fresh and interesting, CCP has to make changes eventually. And like I said, they're the dungeon masters. They can see a lot of things that we don't, especially with the huge stockpiles of ISK and ore and ships and carriers and titans and all that stuff that's happening. Who knows how long this ore distribution, or kind of this suppressed ore amount and all this stuff is going to go on. I have no idea. It could take 6 months, a year, 2 years. I'm willing to write it out, because the whole point I'm trying to get at here is I'm trying to find a way to have an opportunity and leverage this to make ISK, because even though things are costing more, you're also earning more ISK too if you're doing certain activities and stuff, right? So with that whole tangent being done, again, like I said before, I mean, CCP is pretty much the dungeon master. I mean, honestly, they've created this amazing universe to collaboratively tell it together. That's pretty much what Dungeons and Dragons is the dungeon master is presenting the story, but we're all telling it collaboratively together, including the dungeon master. Like, even the dungeon master is part of the game too, right? And so, and honestly, a lot of the problems that happen in game are done by the players, whether it's exploits, loopholes, things like that. So when CCP sets up a certain system, they're not doing it with the intention of players manipulating it or screwing up the market or something like that. That's not their intention. It's usually, again, like I said before, the EVE players are smart and they can adapt really well. They usually find loopholes and things that CCP does, and they take advantage of it. Now it's on CCP to be able to course correct and change these things, which it seems like they've done a much better job recently. I think I've read quite a few interviews and talking in stations and things like that where CCP is trying to be more on their toes when it comes to making changes that are very quick and that should be relatively easy to change. And it's hard to make content and update it and keep it interesting for everyone, and trying to appeal to everyone, and people in solo players, people in tiny corps, people in huge alliances, the super casuals, the RPers, the diehard PvP players, the industrialists, the economists, the miner. Like, it's really hard to make changes and not piss someone off. I mean, that's just how it is, and I think CCP understands this. And like we said, I mean, the game is nearly 2 decades old. I have faith that CCP in the long run is going to make the right decisions and trying to make stuff happen, because you might blame CCP for some of the changes or some of the things that they're doing, but I mean, in some cases, you should be blaming some of the other players. I mean, it's the other players that have been leveraging or mining a ton, or sitting on super capitals or huge stockpiles of ISK and ore and that kind of stuff. That's just how it is. And could have CCP done stuff sooner? Yeah, but I mean, that's what they're trying to do now. And not everyone might agree with it, but I'm here along for the ride, to be honest. And maybe I'm just not jaded enough, because I haven't been playing E for 5-10 plus years, and the way things that were, it's not as the same it was now. I don't know. I personally enjoy the changes. I think the main reason why I've left some other MMOs is because there wasn't enough change, not enough stuff changes, or it's just mostly window dressing, where it might look different on the surface, but it's the very same interaction or the very same style that they did before. Honestly, not much has changed. And so yeah, I mean, that's pretty much it, guys. And I think in all instances, like I said before, like CCP, they're honestly trying to challenge us. And CCP, like I said, they're the dungeon master. They're trying to tell this awesome collaborative story with us, and it's also our part too to be able to interact with it as well. I mean, we're the ones that decided which of the systems were won by the Triglavians and Edencom, the way we interact with each other, the CSM, the reports through the scope. Like, CCP is doing a really good job of, at least in my opinion, interacting with us and making this really feel like a living, breathing world. And whether you disagree with it or not, I mean, obviously, if you disagree with it, post on the forums, like, be respectful. Just like as you would talk to your dungeon master. Hey, I think I want to make this change. And even the dungeon master can sometimes admit, hey, sometimes I made this magic item slightly overtuned. I think we need to dial it back a little bit, because you're really overshadowing the other players that are trying to enjoy their content. So we have to dial it back a little bit. And this is honestly no different. I think I might want to make a video in the future of kind of the similarities and the relationship between CCP and the dungeon master, and the players being kind of like D&D players as well. But that's pretty much it, guys. I really just needed to get some content out here, because I really felt myself struggling to sit down and make a video. I hope you guys enjoy this. I do want to make a few more videos about fits and certain types of content, because those ones seem to do really well. And I'm actually still getting mail from people in game about mostly my Orca fits, because that seemed to be doing really well. I might do some updated versions of that in the meantime, but I will have content coming out. I do want to be more consistent, and honestly, any love and support you guys can send me either in game or in the comments down below, which is awesome. If you guys have any ideas, let me know as well. So hope you guys take care and you fly safe.